Hello, hello.
Hello.
Oh. Hi, everybody.
Who is this?
She's back.
Da,
Da,
da.
da, 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 da. Oh, I don't want to get copyrighted.
I was just say, I feel like I can't do any more without getting
No, that's fair. No, that's valid. Hey, guys.
Dun.
It's me. It's
She's
Kait.
back.
I'm back. I missed you. Did you miss me? Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And while she's here now, you'll probably need some time in between as well, so expect a couple of guest stars still.
Yeah, I'm dipping my toes back in the old stomping ground.
You still have a whole baby to take
but
care
yes,
of.
I do have a lot on my plate. It's time to jump in head first into the wonderful world of folklore.
Woo!
There is nothing else I would rather discuss. Well, other than Titanic, there's nothing else I'd rather discuss.
And that's how you know she's back.
I have literally no idea what our theme song sounds like.
I'm Kait,
And I'm Jane, and this is Creeps and Coffee.
a show where we talk about the dark parts of the world around us
Cryptids, conspiracies, things that go bump in the night.
and the crimes behind the scariest creatures of all, humans.
Join us as we take a look at the stories sure to give you the creeps.
Pull up a seat, grab a coffee.
And let's have a chat.
I couldn't remember it before. And it's been 9 months since I've heard it. So.
Wow. That means you didn't listen to any of the episodes?
Correct. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, ooh.
You gotta catch up.
Yeah, told on myself a little bit.
I made
there.
some really good jokes, probably. Oh, we didn't say what we're talking about yet, did we?
No, because I thought, what better way to transition back into the podcast, back into the wonderful world of folklore and cryptids and the supernatural, than by celebrating the little goblin that I've welcomed into my home
Uh-huh.
and talk about goblins.
Yeah.
I love goblins. I don't, full disclosure, putting this out into the universe, I don't want to interact with any of them. I think they're cool. And I like the historical aspects. Spoiler, take a shot. Caitlin's going to talk about history. I like the historical aspects of goblins. I love the universal aspects of the goblin story. I love how much goblins are in pop culture and people don't even realize it. So I'm excited about this one.
Are you gonna history lesson us?
Absolutely I am. Actually, I'll do
Oh my
you
god,
one better.
also, happy 4-year anniversary.
Oh my god, yeah. No, we were talking about this the other day.
Completely forgot about it.
Absolutely glossed
It was
over
in
the
May.
fact. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. Happy 4 years of Creeps and Coffee.
Happy 4 years.
I love you guys.
I love you guys too, and I love you.
Oh, I love you more. But I will do you one better here and say, not only would it not be Creeps and Coffee, hold on, not coffee. Not only would it not be Creeps and Coffee if I didn't start with history, but it wouldn't be Creeps and Coffee if I didn't start with etymology.
Mm-hmm. And
So.
I knew you would.
Yeah. So, obviously, you guys know actually, complete side note here. Hi, if you have been listening to the show for the last 9 months and have no idea who I am, hi,
Right.
I'm Kait. I am one of the original hosts of Creeps and Coffee. I was busy making a human, so I took a break. And for those of you who remember me, sorry. But I love to talk about the origins of words because I think at our core as humans, language is what sets us so high above other intelligent species. That's not to say that other aspects aren't important, but I think the ability to create and communicate through the vast languages that we have in our current world, in addition to all of the languages where our current language has evolved from, I think that says a lot about us as a species.
I was going to make fun of you, but that was a good one.
Thank you. And with that being said, that means that a lot of things that we find interesting, a lot of things that are super common, things that we say now without even thinking, Jamie's yawning. That took, what was that, 13 seconds of me talking?
Sorry.
We're back, baby. We are back.
It wasn't you, it's me.
But that means that a lot of these words that we're using colloquially now, or commonly now, come from things that used to be a lot more simple, or come from things that had a lot more of a specific, direct meaning. And lucky for us, goblin is one of those words. So, the word goblin itself most likely comes from an old French word spelled Goblin. So not Goblin, like the goblin that we know of in English today, but it would have been gobelin or something similar. I don't know if Old French has... Sure.
God, I could help.
Nailed it. But that that would have been around the 12th century. There's a little bit of a dispute between whether it's around the 12th century or around the 14th century, but the way that we see the word goblin now most likely comes from the Old French. The word may, however, derive from a Greek word. No chance I actually know the correct pronunciation for this one. But kobalos, which means rogue, rascal, or evil spirit. It would have then been adapted by the Romans as kobalis, and then in later Germanic traditions, there would have been a lot of similar words that evolved from it. So German would have been kobold.
Fun fact, in D&D, those are reptilian humans.
I went to university with a girl, that was her last name.
Is she a reptilian humanoid?
Could have been, maybe. Now I'm questioning it. But yes, so it would have evolved into kobold in German, kobolder in Old Norse, and then that leads us back to goblin or gobelin in Old French.
Goblino.
Shut up. So that's when the word goblin started being used more often in reference to the specific creatures that we're going to talk about today. The root of the word, so that kobalos, that Greek word, was also the derivative for kobold or cobalt, the metal. So, fun fact about that, why I enjoy this, is that the metal itself was named after mine spirits who supposedly spoiled the ore. So, already we see cobalt being named after these mischievous little creatures that lived in the mines and would mess with the materials. So, you can kind of look at these as like linguistic cousins. All of these words reveal this broad family across Europe and across the European continent. Is Europe a continent? Yes.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Yes, it is. But this broad family of mischievous, hidden, almost like subterranean spirits. What I also find interesting about the word goblin, but more so in reference to the discussion of the actual creature, is that there is a word for goblin early on in a lot of different cultures around the world. So I would say almost all of them have some sort of reference to not necessarily goblin directly, but a trickster-like creature that lives in houses, that messes with the household, or like with Cobalt, messes with the mines, messes with the forest. And I will talk a little bit more later about the comparisons between other mischievous spirits, because obviously there's different derivatives of that genre. But I think it's interesting that there is so much to be said around the world early on for folklore of this nature. It's very similar to me, here we go, of like Bigfoot. There's Sasquatch stories, there's Yeti stories from all these different cultures around the world that
so many.
At that point in time, early on, would have had no way of properly communicating quickly across each other. Yet they have such similar stories of these creatures, right? So,
which is why they're real.
Yes. You say that to me like I don't believe in these things. I was saying to my partner, like, we are screwed the day that our son comes up and says, Mommy, there's a monster under my bed. Because I'm going to be like, what kind? What do you think it is? Like, sure. I bet there is, dude.
I'm not checking it. You go check it.
That's when Dad comes in and he gets to go check. But I'm just going to fuel the fire. So, if I can, talking about those different cultures, and I promise I'm not going to go too far into it like I used to. I did bullet points this time, you guys.
Wow.
I tried my best.
Wait, are you done with etymology?
Yes. Do you have more about etymology?
I saw that sometimes female goblins are called goblets.
Yes.
And I just thought that was funny.
Personally, I identify as goblet sometimes. So.
See, I feel like when I hear the term goblin, though, it's gender neutral, so
that's
whatever.
Fair.
Don't get offended. If I call you a little goblin in the comments on TikTok, I mean it for everybody. He, she, they. You're a goblin.
Hold on. Pause there. Please tell me you're not calling people goblins using the Creeps and Coffee TikTok.
No, it's my personal one.
Okay, perfect. Just checking.
Awesome.
Okay. So, to talk more about those vast connections across, especially early Europe, I want to talk about Germanic and Norse traditions. So I studied a lot of Germanic, Norse, and Old English when I was in university because I love this shit. So it was really interesting to me to look at an element of their culture again and look at goblins specifically even more closely because there are a lot of similarities between what we consider to be the stereotypical goblin in their stories. So kobolds, like we were talking about in German folklore, were considered household spirits. So if you think about, I know we talked before about like brownies or hops in Britain. I think it would have been in one of our like first cryptid episodes.
I don't remember.
Oh, it was in one of the Christmas episodes. We were talking about
elves or something?
Yeah. I can't remember what they are. But like the meat hook one.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys. I'm just gonna Google meat hook. Meat hook and spoon liquor.
Meat hook goblins.
You know, it's not giving me what I'm saying. It's taking me to some really dark places. The Yule Lads.
Yes. Like the Yule Lads in Britain.
And Pornhub, apparently. On that note, I had a joke. Goblin on this dick. Also, what do you call a goblin with an injured leg? A hobblin' goblin. Did you know the Green Goblin decided to turn good and team up with Spider-Man? He's Willem Dafoe now.
I don't want to be back on this show.
I'll hang up. I'm sorry.
Anyway, kobolds, fuck, household spirits, like the Yule lads that we were just talking about, they could be helpful if they were respected and treated properly, but if they were insulted or felt that their space was infringed upon, they could be malicious. If you look at Norse
For which
mythology...
ones? Brownies?
Kobolds.
Or just... I knew that.
Yes. If you look at Norse mythology, there were similar creatures. There's not necessarily direct goblins, but there were references to dwarves, often in stories of craftsmen or underground dwellers. And there were references to what they called land spirits, or, Landvatir?
Awesome.
Shockingly to no one, I don't speak Norse. Slavic languages are not really my forte, but land spirits. So, again, that connection to sort of the underground dwellings, it meant that the lines between these creatures called dwarfs or trolls or goblins or elves were all pretty blurry. But the fact of the matter was that they were all natural and they were tied to particular places. So again, like the mines, the kobolds messing with the mines. So goblins thus began as these ambiguous spirits. They weren't necessarily evil, but they were unpredictable. And you could influence their interactions without necessarily knowing what you were doing.
God, yeah, they were in everything. English, Scottish, Welsh, Irish.
So then it goes into Celtic and British folk traditions. So by the time of the Middle Ages, the idea of goblins and this folklore had kind of filtered into the British Isles. And it's here where they interacted with creatures that were already considered very similar in Celtic and British folklore, and kind of crossed over that barrier and kind of took on a more mischievous and perhaps more sinister form. And then we start to see
funny.
Yes. But we can kind of see it start to shift around the Middle Ages. So this is where we get hobgoblins. So this is what I call my son. I call him a hobgoblin all the time.
He is.
So these were considered tame goblins. They were small household helpers, like brownies. Again, like brownies, hobs. These hobs are hobgoblins. Hob comes from Rob or Robin. So if you look at a character, so one of my favorite stories of all time is Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
So the character of Puck that gets turned into Puck, his name is Robin Goodfellow. So Robin Goodfellow, Robin is a diminutive of Hob. Goodfellow is also a name for a character. Like this would be the name that a lot of supposed goblins would give to Trick, because they were mischievous, but how can you not trust someone whose name is Goodfellow? So Puck is essentially a hobgoblin. He also wears a donkey on his head, but that's beside
irrelevant.
the point. That's irrelevant. That's just a little fun fact. If you cross over the Scottish borders, you have things like redcaps. So redcaps are malevolent goblins, again going back to the Norse tradition of having these things situated in specific places. Redcaps were inhabitants of ruined castles, of which there are many. Yes, Jamie?
And why are they called red caps?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
I know why.
Jamie, why are they called redcaps?
Because they dye their hat with human blood.
Yeah, so these ones, like I said, a little bit more malevolent. So these goblins would dip their caps in the blood of their victims. So this is not quite the kooky spoon licker Yule lad
No.
that we've come to know and love. But, so if you're exploring Scottish castles, watch out, be careful. But then you also see reference to things like bogles or bogarts are some things that you might hear more often. Or my personal favorite, bugbears.
Ah!
But these are all regional variants of goblin-like creatures. Like a lot of Celtic and British folklore, often used to scare children into behaving properly. We go back to the Yule lads. For some reason, I'm going to talk a lot about the Yule lads today. I love those guys. I miss them.
Yeah, they never came up in my thoughts, but yeah, good to see you guys. How y'all doing?
I didn't think about them until right now, and now I'm like, man, they were.
Also,
kinda
we
cool.
will add pictures, by the way, on
Yes.
Instagram as usual. If you want to see a brownie, go to our Instagram. It'll be up at some point, I'm sure. You said Bogart,
Yes.
which is interesting because that's in Harry Potter,
Yes. Correct.
and I didn't know that. That it was a real thing.
It's a British goblin.
As much as I hate J.K. Rowling,
Much
but we'll
like-
get into that.
It's a British goblin, much like several of my exes.
Oh. You're being nice to them. You could call them meaner things. You know who you are, and I know you listen. What's up?
Hey.
Gobble on my nuts.
Anyway, so in these contexts, goblins really embodied more so domestic fears. So again, that thought of like, okay, well, the children have to behave. The unpredictability of nature. So that is more something like the red caps, where in unpredictable circumstances, if you stumble upon some mysterious place, don't trust it. And they embodied moral lessons about politeness and humility and respect for yourself and your belongings and other people's belongings in space. So a lot of it is really consequential interactions. So the stories that we hear, very similar to a lot of Celtic and British stories in general, not necessarily even just folklore, but stories in general. There always seems to be a lesson in politeness and properness that comes out of middle age.
And is this
British
goblins
Isles.
as a whole or a
Yes.
specific
This is goblins as a whole.
Okay, that's interesting.
Just as a general sense. Obviously, like the red caps, there are...
I was gonna say,
Several.
I have something to add to that.
Sure.
So, at least in relation to, like, symbolism.
Oh, I'm gonna get...
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
for it.
No. This is just
Okay.
middle-aged Britain.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, there's some interesting takes.
No. When those interesting takes start to happen is also during the Middle Ages, but later on during, like, the medieval and the Renaissance periods. Which is largely when we see a shift in culture and a shift in perspective on a lot of things. So this is a point in history where everything that was not the church was evil. And as such, goblins became part of this kind of
Monster.
this like Christianized demonology. And what originated as this idea of a pagan household spirit became reinterpreted by the church and as such by greater society as this like minor devil.
Rah!
And really turned it into this scary idea of this like goblin.
Little green guy going. "Rah, rah, rah."
Yeah, that's more of a gremlin.
Well,
But yes, like a monster and not just this little being, right? So going back to the idea of goblins really started being documented in the 12th century. There's a chronicler named Gervase of Tilbury who described goblins and hobgoblins as invisible spirits that would interact with humans, sometimes referring to tormenting humans, sometimes helping them. But there was a lot of focus placed on this idea of torment and how it was these negative spirits sent from hell or wherever, and they became associated with nighttime disturbances, hauntings, superstitions, things that were outside the rational explanation, particularly of the church and of the kingdoms. Because if it wasn't if it wasn't in their control, evil. By the Renaissance,
demon.
We then saw goblins as not just tricksters, but as thieves, or these grotesque beings that were malicious and ugly and stuck in these lonely places like cellars and mines and ruins, which is really where the negative connotations come from. And I'm aware now that it really sounds like I'm pro-goblin. Because I'm like, they were demonized. They are probably pretty creepy. I don't want it out in the universe that I want to interact with a goblin.
I'm pro-goblin. I don't care.
But
I'll
think
say
they're
it.
interesting.
Controversial political take. I'm pro-goblin.
So, to kind of wrap up on the history stuff, or get a little closer to where we are now, if we look at like the 18th and 19th centuries, in the Romantic era, that's when we start to see folklore scholars and poets, people like the Brothers Grimm, where most of our fairy tales come from, people like George MacDonald. These artists revived the interest in goblins and shifted the narrative again to less of these demons, but more as part of the Fae. And this idea that, along with elves and pixies and trolls, that goblins were part of this like fairy race with this group of ancient pagan nature spirits. So during this period, I would say probably like 90% of literature that we have that describes goblins describes them as short, grotesque, green or gray, with long spindly fingers, long nails, and thank God you guys can't see me right now because I have very bony fingers and long pointy nails, and as I'm doing this waving thing with my fingers, I'm realizing that maybe I look like a goblin. Anyway, I'm having a spiral here. I'm just gonna look away from myself. They were considered to be mischievous, greedy, not wholly evil, but cruel, and people or creatures that thrived in the chaos that they created. And again, it really stuck with the narrative that their habitats were caves and abandoned mines and forests, or these dark corners of human dwellings like castle ruins or attics or cellars, that sort of thing. So they became the symbol of the dark side of the fairy world, especially when you consider the contrast of like how beautiful fairies are, and as if they aren't also tricksters.
You ever see Barbie Fairytopia? You got the fairies, and then you got the green goblins. Who are the bad guys? What are their names? It's like Grug and Stug or something stupid.
Something like that. All I remember is Bibble. Nailed it.
Goblins can also represent temptation and consequences.
Totally.
That one
Tell me more.
apparently is in relation to the poem Goblin Market.
By Christina Rossetti.
Boom.
Yep. Written in 1862. They were depicted as seductive yet sinister fruit sellers.
That sexy green goblin selling bananas.
But
I grossed myself
interestingly,
out.
this, yeah, I decided to not address that. This kind of tied them to the idea of human psychology and sexuality. So this was really the first time that goblins, well, maybe not the first time, but one of the first researchable, notable experiences where goblins could be used as symbols. And this will come up again when we look a little bit more at goblins that we see in pop culture, and goblins in the 20th century. But it's important to kind of look at how these fictional, quote-unquote, characters, creatures, are portrayed, especially when compared to real people.
So, yeah, I wanted to pop in with some D&D stuff, Dungeons & Dragons, big old nerd, really leaning into it. Goblins are a big part of D&D. It's very classic of you if you've just started to, your DM, your dungeon master will be like, okay, you went into a cave and you found 2 goblins. You have to fight them for their loot, whatever. They're a very beginner level creature to fight and usually kill, and you can loot their bodies and stuff, but they are I think they're quite important because they're essentially the henchmen in a lot of this. So goblins are small, supposedly they say they're black-hearted humanoids that they hang out in dungeons or other dismal settings, just like they said and Caitlin said in the history. Individually, supposedly they're very weak to kill off, but they can gather in large numbers to then become a big issue, torment other creatures. Also, they are a playable race. Fun fact, if you want to be a goblin, you can. And as Caitlin mentioned, bugbears are technically goblinoids, which is correct because you can also play as a bugbear or fight bugbears. The first D&D session I ever did, we fought a bugbear.
Bugbear.
Yeah, exactly. You can also play or fight hobgoblins and shadow goblins. Also, when I started this, I will preface it by saying, I was like, let's do goblins. I want to talk about every single race of goblin. I can't. I can list off a couple of them. But yeah, it would be hours. And so, I won't do that. I'll just slide them in every one of our other, cryptid episodes. Because you've got, we could go into detail. We've mentioned the brownies, the dwarves, the gnomes. You can go into detail on those as well. You've got imps, leprechauns, I can't say any of these. Trasgui, Pugwudgie, Mukai. But yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, so this is the thing. There's
Dobaki.
So many different...
No, Dokabi.
There's so many different branches of Fae in general that have so many similarities. So I kind of did a quick, what makes goblins stick out versus some of these stereotypical. Because you're right, you could go into major detail in all of these.
You also have the Gudrabanga in Bangladesh.
But if you look at, goblins versus elves, elves have their own Old Norse derivative from the word alfar.
I also, not that they are, but that there is connection to goblins with other creatures. They have a relation with, the jinn, for example, or other things in Islamic culture, Jihlan, Ifrit.
Yeah, but yes, I'm going to talk about that a little bit.
Amazing.
Sorry, this is really just me again. Kate's back.
Welcome back.
Still with elves. It started off really as the idea of a light elf versus a dark elf, which very closely resembles what we would consider goblins versus elves in today's perspective on them, I guess.
Also in South India, Kutikchathan is a mischievous / evil goblin mainly found in Kerala folklore.
Something like goblins versus trolls. Trolls are the muscle, goblins are the schemers. They're both sort of on the darker side, but trolls are considered the dumb brutes, whereas goblins are the masterminds of it all.
What's a goblin's favorite dinner? Goulash. Ghoul.
No, I got it. So we talked about how Christianity really swept Europe. And in this sweep, goblins were often rebranded as devils or demons. But their roots, at the end of the day, unlike imps and demons, a goblin's roots are folkloric. They're not theological. We talked about fairies. Again, they're kind of two sides of the same mythic coin. In older folklore, fairy didn't mean beautiful or anything of that sort. It just meant supernatural. So I thought that was just interesting. If we look at these things called one of my best friends is Korean. Good thing she doesn't listen to this show, because she would have my head for trying to pronounce this. Dokabi. They're kind of classic goblins in every sense, if you really think about it. They're very unpredictable. They're very fond of games. Sometimes these games have rewards. Sometimes they are very nice to you. Sometimes they are very punishing. Kind of like Jamie was referencing. Like we said at the beginning of the show, all over the world.
I can just go over a couple of different pop culture things, as we know, we love. Goblins in fiction. We've already listed, I think, a couple of different goblins in literature, but goblins in fiction and literature, you know, you've got the Princess and the Goblin. You have the the Artemis Fowl series, which goblins are seen as stupid, but they can also conjure fireballs, they can be dangerous, that sort of thing. You've got Discworld series. I haven't read either of these or anything, but they originally were despised, and then the goblins are later integrated into society for their unique talents, which were then valued, which, you know, do it that way you will. Then, of course, you've got fairy tales that are more old and classic. I'll be honest, if Kate said these earlier, I wasn't really listening. You've got the Goblin Pony, which is a traditional French fairy tale that was published in 1900s by a Scottish poet. You've got the Goblins Turned to Stone, which is a traditional Dutch short story in 1918 by an American author, William Elliot Griffiths, in his collection of stories called Dutch Fairy Tales for Young Folks. And then The Benevolent Goblin is a folk story written by an unknown author in the 13th or 14th century. You also have in media, you've got 1986 Labyrinth with what's-his-face? David Bowie.
Okay, yes. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what you were talking about.
There's also a Italian progressive rock band named Goblin.
Yes.
And they're known for horror film scores like Suspiria.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an American band called Necro Goblin or Necro Goblincore. There's also Goblincore aesthetics and goblin music on YouTube that evoke a fantasy bard-based mood booster, that sort of thing.
Love that.
In the Marvel comics, oh, I brought them up. Oh. There are mostly villain goblins. You've got, you know, Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe, the Hobgoblin.
I thought he was Willem Dafoe.
He's now the Goblin King, Goblin Knight. Some of these characters look like goblins, and some of them are just like whatever.
Yeah, some of them just use the name as the stereotypical depiction, right? Like, of these evil characters again.
Yeah. And there's some not so fun stuff about goblins. I wanted to quickly talk about the use of goblins in hate.
Yep.
Because that is a thing that I did not know.
Let's talk about Harry Potter.
So, goblins also have a little bit of history where they were used as anti-Semitic caricatures. Can't say that word.
Again, let's talk about Harry Potter.
Shocker to no one, more controversy, J.K. Rowling. I like Harry Potter, always did as a kid. Her, despicable human being. I stand for nothing she stands for. But a lot of her characters have a little racism in them. Cho Chang, Being the
That's
only
exactly
Asian.
what I was gonna say.
Also, one of the very few black characters, Kingsley Shacklebolt. Babe, what? Hey! Oh. And so there are undertones of anti-Semitism as well, with the goblins, with the big noses, short, ba-da-da, running the banks. It does play on a Jewish stereotype that is in itself racist.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to be mindful to not play into that.
So, I'm going to talk about Lord of the Rings again. Goblins are a race of malicious and underground creatures that they were essentially synonymous with the idea of the orcs. They were the bad guys, right? So Tolkien, the author of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series, borrowed the medieval term for goblin, but expanded it into what was really the first time we saw a depiction of a goblin as a fully realized species. And this became the model, essentially, for goblins in modern fantasy. So because of Tolkien's depiction of goblins and this reference to these big, scary, menacing creatures out for blood, we get goblins as staple creatures in fantasy and in gaming. So I know Jamie touched on references a little bit, but yeah, you see them in Dungeons and Dragons. You see them in video games like Zelda and World of Warcraft as these little side characters. You see them, again, Harry Potter running Gringotts Bank. They're not only horrific Jewish stereotypes physically, but they're depicted as clever, as secretive, as these morally ambiguous, crafty creatures. So modern goblins and modern depictions of what we know goblins as today are really an amalgamation of medieval mischief makers and industrial age representations of these cunning, sneaky workers in a post-Tolkien world, really more on the evil side of the morally ambiguous scale, let's say. That's my take on goblins in pop culture. All I really wanted to talk about with that was Lord of the Rings.
Can I also add something that you did not mention? Maybe you don't know. Maybe you did. Okay.
No, you can't.
I wanted to know if you saw the thing about Dungeons and Dragons and The Hobbit.
No.
In 1976, the creators of Dungeons and Dragons received a legal challenge concerning the use of the term goblin from The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings by the Tolkien estate. The Tolkien estate tried to sue D&D for the use of the terms goblin, as well as the terms dragon, dwarf, elf, hobbit, orc, warg, and ent, E-N-T. So they were able to argue, no, the term goblin is under public domain, which it is.
Yeah.
And so they agreed, though, to change the race hobbit into halfling, the creature Balrog, whatever the copyright was, to something else. Goblin, relax. That's like me trying to copyright the term computer. And I just find that funny because I'm talking about D&D again, sorry. Now they have a crossover. D&D, ex Lord of the Rings / Hobbit, are now partners. You can be an elf, a dwarf, a hobbit, a barding, a man of Bree, or a ranger of the north on D&D Beyond. You can play as a captain, a scholar, a champion, a messenger, a warden, or a treasure hunter. So, Tolkien estate, suck on that. Gobble on that, if you will.
Also, I'm just going to roast myself for a second. The fact that I love Lord of the Rings as much as I do, but I make fun of you for playing D&D.
I am a little shocked, yeah. That's all. That was my last thing I had to say about goblins. I just thought that was funny.
I have sort of a general overview, which I think ties in nicely to what we've been saying about goblins, looking at symbolism and more like psychological interpretations of goblins.
Amazing.
Across cultures and across centuries, the idea of goblins, whatever category they may be under, from all of these vast subgenres of goblin, they all symbolize the same thing. So this idea of the uncanny, this idea of domestic anxiety, these things that go bump in the night. They all symbolize this idea of hidden greed or corruption. They're hoarders. They store these things in their dark corners, and they prey on human nature and the greed of humanity. They're the trickster archetype, right? And they represent the other, or the marginalized, which is kind of like we were talking about with their depiction in Harry Potter. They're often used in literature as representations of the outcast beings, which represent societal fears. So in literature and in psychology, they continue to persist as these metaphors for suppressed impulses, for disorder and lust and greed, and they're considered kind of the shadow side of what we know as humanity, right? This overall idea being that the story of goblins endure across societies, across cultures, across time, because they embody something true. They are the parts of humanity, the parts of us, the parts of our literature, the parts of our history, the parts of ourselves as humans that hide in the dark. Order versus chaos, virtue versus vice, beauty and ugliness, conscious, unconscious, all of these things, right? So you can kind of look at it with like a Jungian perspective, to use a psychological term. Befriend the goblin. You want to integrate this idea. If you think about it, like, goblins want to hoard things. They want to collect. They want to hide in the dark. It's like a fairy tale where the hero has to befriend or outwit the goblin to gain its treasure, right? Whatever they've hoarded. But if you look at goblins from a societal, psychological aspect, what they're hoarding isn't necessarily gold or treasure. The treasure itself, symbolically, is self-knowledge and self-understanding. So in order to outwit and gain this self-knowledge, we have to befriend the goblin.
Okay, deep.
Those are my parting words on goblins. Goblins are cool.
I like them more now.
Team Goblin. Me too. That's a little review on goblins and humanity and where we stand. So if you liked this deep dive into a more specific cryptid creature, let us know and we'll do more of these, because I kind of enjoyed doing this. Even though goblins are a broad category, like we said, it's kind of nice to focus on just one instead of like a super cryptid episode. Yeah, that was cool. But yeah, if you liked it, let us know. If you have your own perspective on goblins, please tell us. We would love to know what you think.
Make sure that you follow our Instagram, which is creepsandcoffee with an N, or our X/Twitter, creepsandcoffee, or email us if you want to tell us about anything, topic ideas, anything like that. creepsandcoffee@gmail.com. And then, if you want to subscribe to our Patreon, we would much appreciate it. patreon.com/creepsandcoffee. Join the SAS Squad. Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening. I love you. I'm so happy to be back.
I love you. Bye.
I love you. Bye.
Creeps and Coffee is produced and edited by us, Kait and Jane.
Our theme music is Stuck in a Hole by Dated.
For more information on where to find them, check out the link in our show notes. And to connect with us, follow us on Instagram